The only thing worse than sitting in traffic is all of the wear and tear your engine experiences from the constant stop and go. So do your engine a favor. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics, made from natural gas and designed for complete protection. Pennzoil Synthetics are pure performance.
The NBA on ESPN Radio. Jimmy Butler, Pau Gasol, and the Bulls head to L.A. to face Chris Paul and the Clippers.
Throws it down with two hands.
Coverage begins Sunday at 2:30 Eastern on ABC and on ESPN Radio. This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Golic. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Here's what we have for you from Friday. I did come back, but I'm not back and better than ever, that's for sure. The perception of Cam Newton, Ron Jaworski breaks that down, and his play on the field. 3 interesting hockey stories. Timmy Legler looking ahead to the NBA All-Star Game. And Travis Kelce has his own reality dating show.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
With Mike Golic, I'm Ian Fitzsimmons here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and the ESPN app, presented by Progressive Insurance. And Golic, it is good to have you back.
Yeah.
Before we get into anything involving the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
the NBA, Russell Wilson, and how he sends lovely messages to his beautiful girlfriend.
Right.
NFL stars now doing reality dating shows.
Oh, I love that.
Before we get to any of that, and one huge wager already dropped in Vegas on the Carolina Panthers, please tell us all what happened to you to have you miss the last couple of days here on Mike and Mike.
Somewhat embarrassing to a point, especially the first day I was off when Greeny was doing the show with my son Mike, and Greeny talking about we both worked out that day, and he's the one who showed up to work and I didn't. That's very difficult when a guy like Greeny says something like that.
It is so painful to watch you just turn and look at me.
Here's the deal. Tuesday, when I got up Tuesday morning, my neck was a little stiff. I've had some back and neck issues, not a ton, but I woke up and it was a little stiff this morning. Came and did the show, and when I went home, I did normal workout. Or one of the workouts that I do is running pretty hard on a treadmill with a good incline. Then I go and I have a rowing machine. And I did a ton of rowing mixed in with some lifting in between just to kind of keep moving. And as the doctors finally said, the rowing was your big mistake. Imagine the rowing and the pulling with up on the shoulders and the neck area. So I finished that, and then through the day, it just got worse and worse to the point where I literally couldn't move. My wife was stunned. She said, listen, we've been married for a long time, and I've known you for years before that. Over 30 years we've known each other. The only time I've seen you in this much pain is, when you've damaged, between the surgeries that you had, and now you're 53 years old, whatever the hell I am, and feeling like about 80. She said, I've never seen you in this much pain. I literally Tuesday night couldn't sleep. I did not sleep one wink. I was texting with Amanda and Ray saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of bed in the morning. Turns out I never got to go to bed because I couldn't lay down. So I sat in a chair all night, and I told my son Mike, before he went to bed, I said, get ready, you may be on deck. And Ray finally starts texting me at 3 in the morning. I'm wide awake, texting him back, and I'm said, there's no way I'm in. Tell him, Mike, you're up. He comes down, sees me, as he mentioned, with the blanket draped over my head. It looked like the crypt keeper. But I couldn't move. I spent that day going to doctors, getting needles jabbed into my shoulders and my trap and my neck. And I was supposed to have a procedure tomorrow, today, but I got to fly out to Notre Dame. It's Sydney's last swim meet out there, so we're going to head out there. Or I'm going to. The wife is already out there.
The thought of you getting on an airplane.
Hey, I'm not overly excited about that, but I am about 1,000% better than I was on Wednesday and about 800% better than I was yesterday. I mean, I was stunned. I was stunned, and I was embarrassed that waking up with a stiff neck and then working out caused that I could not sleep, and I had to run around to doctors to get needles stuck in there to try and loosen it up.
If you would have come in, and we've known each other a long time.
Yeah.
And you don't claim me we always,
Right.
This is, I'm like Rupert coming out of the basement. But if you would have come in and said, well, I heard it doing squats or something like
God.
that, I was going to annihilate you but you're 50 some odd years old. I'm 43.
Yeah.
there's no reason to have a bar on your back at this age. But it may be worse that it wasn't squats, that it was or something like that.
Yeah.
A rowing machine.
It would have been better if, I felt good squatting and I tried to do a little over 500 one day, and I just went down wrong. A rowing machine took me down. I mean, that
might be worse.
That's where I am. And I can't hide from it. That was the fact. But lifting, my God, I remember the first few years I was here when NFL Live was called NFL Tonight. And it was me, Mark Malone, Merrill Hodge, and Sean Salisbury. And Merrill and Malone worked out like they were still playing. I'd go over to the gym we had here at ESPN to do my little workout. These guys would have 405 or more, 495 on the squat. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? You realize you're not playing anymore. But they were working out like they were still, and they looked great. So obviously it had a great effect on them. But oh my God! I mean, I haven't put a bar on my shoulders in a long time, nor could I.
In our pre-show meeting, I looked at him and I said, "Please tell me one squats." And you looked at me like I was an alien.
Oh my God!
Are you out of your bleeping mind?
The greatest thing today, me being here, is the fact that I'm on a swivel chair. And I can swivel
to watch you.
Because I still have a little bit of difficulty turning the neck. So, listen, I deserve to get ripped. I deserve the embarrassment. If Greeny, well, then again, I know I may have worked out a little harder than Greeny's 33-minute workout on the elliptical. If I hear the 1-minute warm-up and the 2-minute cool-down and the 30-minute, elliptical that he's doing, I may have outdone that a little bit, but it cost me.
Look, I try and avoid exercise because it makes me tired.
Yeah.
That's a whole other
thing. Your wife has a different thought on that.
Does she ever, man? Yeah. Does she ever?
Yeah, feel free to lift a weight or two, I think she says to you.
Not looking good in the mirror, Coach. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
Golic's back on me and Fitzsimmons in for Greeny. Thanks for spending part of your morning with us. We had Ron Rivera on yesterday. Talking about his quarterback, Cam Newton, his team getting ready for the Super Bowl.
Boy, Cam really hitting the spotlight here. I guess that's what happens when you're in the Super Bowl and you're going to be the MVP.
Let me get your thoughts on what Ryan Clark had to say before we hear from Ron Rivera and what he thought of his quarterback in addressing how he's perceived and why he is, by a lot of people's accounts, disliked by anybody outside of the Carolina fan base and that franchise. Clark said that he believes that it's not as much color as it is culture.
Yeah.
You agree?
I don't. He seemed to discount color. Well, I think because he doesn't want the word racism associated with this. So do we want to go that far and say racism and being say you're a racist? That's what people don't want to hear. Wait a minute. I don't like the guy. I don't like his antics. Doesn't mean I'm a racist. It's not about the color of his skin. But I do think some of it is the color of his skin. But I do agree. I think a large amount of it is culture.
The celebrations, the dabbing, the sprinkling from sideline to sideline.
I think, and I heard some of this conversation. I heard my son bring up, and he used the term a red herring, where it would make you look at other things like what happened in college, between his dad shopping him around a bit and with the laptop. And as I think Mike Jr. correctly said, that's right. When you're 18 or 19, nobody's ever made a mistake. I mean, listen.
I'm lucky to be here.
Yeah, he has made mistakes. He did some things that didn't pass the smell test. For me, I think part of it, Ian, because we always compare him with, look what Aaron Rodgers does with the discount double check. Look what Tom Brady does running down the field. Here's one of the differences to me. When did those guys start doing that? When did we start becoming aware of that? Weren't they already established stars?
Big time.
Weren't they already big-time players? Cam came in, obviously, with a big name, number one pick, and you looked at him and you said, my God, are you kidding me? Look at the size of this guy. And he played somewhat well early on, but he hadn't won anything yet, and he kind of was a flamboyant acting guy, which is his personality. So I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, people thinking, hey, do something first. Before you start showboating, do something. I think there was that part of it, because remember, as part of that first season, he also sat on the end of the bench and pouted. He was more of an I guy than a me guy. Still somewhat of an I guy with the way he acts, but, and I heard him say, I haven't changed a bit. Well, you know what? When I was 23 in my core values, and I'm 53, a lot of my core values are the same. So I could say, I didn't change a lot, but I've changed a lot. You know what I mean? And he's changed. He's changed. He's more of a team leader now. He cares more about his team, and he's become a better quarterback on the field. So he has changed. I know he says, I haven't changed. He is the same person. I hope I'm making sense here.
He has been. He's played that way. Yeah, he's played that way since he was at Blinn Junior College.
Exactly. He's played that way, but he has changed. He has matured. Though some people would say, has he? Look at his actions. Yes, I think he has matured from the team aspect. Because what would show me he hasn't, if he does all that stuff and none of his teammates even cared about it. But you know what? They follow him. And to be honest, that's the only thing that matters. That is the only thing that matters. Now, you want to get into off the field and him giving the ball to the kids and all he's done in the community? You know what I would say about people who have a problem with Cam Newton is, my God, in professional sports, when we have to start our shows with this ink blotter or that ink blotter, what has this guy done? Okay, I get it. You know, the laptops, that's not a great look in college when people make mistakes.
That's a different chapter of his life.
Well, exactly right. But still, people want to associate that at times. Look at what some of the garbage we're dealing with now with players who are on the field playing. This cat is having some fun. I mean, you may not like it but I do think it's a cultural thing. I do. And, you know, I'm 53. When I first saw it, that was my response. When I first saw the way he acted early on, I thought, you know what? I'd like to see you achieve something first, get established first before you do that. But that's probably even unfair because that's his personality. Was it Brian Billick who said yesterday, I think I heard, he said this cat, since he was born,
he's an avatar.
Has been the best athlete on any field of play he's been on. And that's true. So this has been the way he is. So it's even unfair of me to say, you know, cool it until you've done something. That's the part that rubbed me a little bit the wrong way early on, is I'd like to, and because that's why I don't get the comparison a lot to Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, because those guys, that was the difference. Before we started talking about all the things they did, they had become established. So that kind of was my 2 and 2. And maybe that was me. And you could say I'm wrong for that as well. But mine wasn't cultural in that instance. It was more do something first in the league before you act like that. And I would say I was probably wrong in that thinking. That's his attitude. You know, but I think he has matured as a player from sitting on the end of the bench pouting to being a team leader now, to where Mike Shula, the offensive coordinator, you go from stages. Think about this as a quarterback. Your quarterback coming into the league, the first thing you want to do is stop your head from spinning, from everything you're being fed of that offense.
Especially because you've never called a play.
That's exactly right. You just want to be able to walk, as simple as it sounds, gang, but true for the way the quarterbacks come into the league. And Cam, you know that Auburn system where everybody's kind of looking to the side when he was playing and calling a play, is you want to be able to get in the huddle and remember the stinking play. You know, be able to call the play fully to where he is now of not only doing that, checking at the line, but he's also adjusting routes on the fly with his teammates because he has such a great grasp of the offense. That's maturity at the position. That's the growth at the position that he now has, especially throwing from the pocket. So he has become a much better football player. He's absolutely a team leader, one of the team leaders. They have a few on that team with a Luke Kuechly and a Thomas Davis. They have some excellent leadership on that team.
Who is going to play, by the way.
We'll get into that one. And Greg Olsen, they have great leadership on that team. So I do think a lot of it is cultural. Color does have to come into play. But I do think a lot of it is cultural. And I thought, and I heard Ryan Clark say he talked to a wife of a player who had quarterback, who had been in the league for about 10 years. And I think this is a lot of it. I don't like him, and I can't figure out the reason why. He just rubs me the wrong way. And I think that's for a lot of people. He just kind of rubs you the wrong way. And I guess I'm to the point where I'm like, enjoy. He doesn't do anything against the opponent. We've seen some guys try and knock the ball out of his hand, then he'll jump in their face, and that's fine. But for the most part, he's having a good time. He's not doing it to an opponent. He's doing it for the fans. So I love what he's doing right now. Most importantly, from a football aspect, as a former football player, I love his maturation as a football player, from on the field to leadership.
That particular bride may not be able to figure out why, but in Carolina, they know one thing.
Yeah.
Every Panther fan loves that guy. And if he's on your team, you love him. If he's not on your team, you can't stand him. Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. Now, you can test drive Snapshot, To see how much you could save before switching to Progressive, visit progressive.com/snapshot. What does his head coach, Ron Rivera, think about his quarterback? We asked him that very question when he joined us yesterday here on Mike and Mike. Here's Ron Rivera.
I got no issue with it because to me, that's the truth of the matter. There's no reason to change who you are. I mean, people like you or dislike you for who you are to them. And that's the one thing. And I think if anybody really took the time to get to know who he is, see the things that he has done, I find it hard for people to not like him. I mean, this is a young man that not just is a quality football player, but he's a solid person. He's a solid citizen. When you see him interact with young people and be the role model for young people, especially in today's world. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, yeah, maybe you had to act a certain way, but in today's world, with all the social media that's out there, to be as flamboyant as he is, and that might be a strong word, but as flamboyant as he is, that's what the young people look up to today. They look up to the guys that have charisma, have some leadership to them, have a certain quality that I think is important. These young people will follow him, and that's what I wish people would understand. I mean, I thought Sports Illustrated wrote a great article on him about a month ago talking about who he is, and I think I really do mean this because I had to study the guy. When I came out as the head coach, doing the things that we had to do in terms of preparation, I spent a lot of quality time with the young man. Got to spend time with his family. Went down and spent a whole day with him. And when you see who he is, and you see the dynamics of that, and the love in that home that they have, it's hard for me to believe that people just don't understand, who he is and why he is the way he is.
Quick email from getting a lot of them ready. Cam kind of reminds me of Brett Favre, the way he has fun out on the field. He does have fun, and he does dance and do some of the antics that turn some people off. Here's the one thing that I know Coach said, but I don't think will ever happen. He said, if you get to know the kid, well, here's the thing. Most people aren't going to get to know him, right? Unless you want to Google them and read some stories about them. Fans don't get to know players. They don't. You don't really know who they ever are, right? All the emails we're getting from all over the country, these people are never going to get to know Cam Newton. They're going to see him and they're going to form their opinion about him. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I don't think it's going to be, well, once you get to know Cam, you'll see he's different. You're not going to get to know him. We only know him to the extent that he's a ball player, come on the show, do an interview on the show. I don't know Cam. I know some of these guys more than I know others, but you don't know them. You see what they do, and you form an opinion based off of that. That's what's going on here. I mean, we have emails where people feel the need to say an email about them and then say, I'm a 58-year-old white woman. I mean, but that's where we are. I mean, because people that want to show, listen, this isn't racial, but or racism or racial or about color. It's part of it is. I do think a bigger part is cultural. The culture.
Yeah, Clark hit that out of the park.
Yeah, I do as well.
Here's an example that actually your son brought up after the show yesterday, and that was year 2 of Johnny Manziel, the money signs. Right. Now, Johnny Manziel's about as white as it gets, and that drove everybody nuts. Now, early on with his teammates, it didn't, but that was one of those things where the dancing and everything else, was that also cultural? And let me ask you this about Johnny Manziel. Good example. Because the players in college liked him. He didn't prove he could be a pro right away. So that's an aspect. Working on that.
That's an aspect there. But let me spin it a little bit with Johnny Manziel. Say Johnny Manziel had been playing really well. Say Johnny Manziel was a starter for a while and made the Pro Bowl, but then again, anybody can make it now, as we found out. Made a Pro Bowl, but was considered a really good player, and he was still doing that. Would it be more accepted?
Oh, absolutely.
See, there's
no doubt about it.
That's where I went with that was my thought of Cam coming into the league, not having proven anything yet, and doing a lot of the antics. My thought was, wait till you prove something. But I guess I can look at it and say, is that right to do? Johnny Manziel came into the league, and he was Johnny Manziel. He was Johnny Manziel. Unfortunately, he had no clue how to be a pro. And Cam Newton went through some adjustments, as I said, of sitting at the end of the bench and pouting and learning what it took to evolve as a leader, which is something he has done.
The other thing in this whole debate about one of the best players in the National Football League right now and one of the best athletes on the planet right now, does the narrative change if he wins the Super Bowl? And to me, unequivocally, I say yes. You win the biggest game on the planet, and the biggest game that we will watch, and you play well in that game, man, you're going to change a lot of opinions where you have that 50-year-old white woman who doesn't like him.
No, she did.
Oh, she does like him. Okay.
She put in there she did and felt she had to exclamation point, and I'm a 58-year-old white woman saying this. So, but no, she did. She did have a problem.
Opinions change big time of that older generation of they just hand the ball over to the official. Act like you've been there.
Do you think if he won the Super Bowl, the people that don't like him, do you think if he won the Super Bowl, they would change? Why would they? If they haven't changed already, they went there. They have one loss this year, and he's the MVP. So you think one more game would change him?
That game on that stage and play well, I think you will have a large portion that will sit there and go, you know what? Kudos to you, kid. Well done, man.
You know what, quite honestly, will be interesting is forgetting the football fans, how many casual fans the Super Bowl gets. I mean, way outnumbers the football fans, correct? I mean, when you're talking about 50 million people watching the game or whatever, what the 50 rating, so it's like 100 and some million people, isn't it? The Super Bowl, isn't the rating like usually at a 50 and it's 100 and some million people are watching the game? It's way more, there'll be way more casual fans watching. That's going to be the interesting thing, is what the casual fan who isn't used to seeing Cam Newton play that way. And what they're going to, and I think you'll get the same thing. Some are going to go, wow, look at that. That's pretty cool. And they're going to find out he's the MVP, he's a good player. And others are going to say, oh, that's garbage what he's doing. Go hand the ball to the official. What are you doing? You're still going to get it.
You know as well as anybody. You played it. You win and play well and perform well on that stage. You're going to change. People will say, you know what, man? Tip of the cap.
I'm not sure I agree fully with that. Of all the people that don't like him right now, you think of the next game if he wins, those people will change their mind.
He's going to sway some people. Absolutely.
I think he'll sway some, yeah. That I do agree.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike. Coach Love is back to transform a nation of hopeless men into hopeless romantics. And Sport Clips Haircuts has just the game plan for you, with a chance to win cool prizes, too. See the rules and enter at sportclips.com/Coach Love. No purchase necessary. U.S. only. 18 or older. Ends 2/5/16. Void where prohibited.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Let's bring in Ron Jaworski here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Choose Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline for the best total engine protection you can get. Jaws, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Ian. Good morning, Mike. It sounds like Mike is talking about his football days again. Needles, medication, stiff neck.
It's amazing, Ron, that even without football, that stuff still works.
You are correct, wise one.
Hey, Jaws, he said earlier it's the most pain he has felt since his playing days.
I doubt that.
It was quite embarrassing, but I try and survive, and we move on, and we get to talk about another Super Bowl. Jaws, we have all been doing this for a long, long time, and I really think one of the impressive things here, which I've talked about a lot, but I really love to get it from the quarterback eyes, is just how Cam Newton has gone from rookie quarterback, sitting on the end of the bench, pouting at times, not really being a team guy, to now a team guy, but even more importantly, he is so evolved at the quarterback position to being involved in game planning and adjusting routes and audibles on the field, of just how that maturation process took place and where he is now.
Mike, I think number one, when you look at Cam Newton, he had the talent when he was coming out of Auburn. I spent the day with Cam Newton and John Gruden at Gruden Camp when John was, putting him at the board and working him out. And you could tell this was a guy that was going to have a very bright future. He was raw, but he was very talented. And, in the microwave world we live in, we want instant hot. And most people don't understand how hard it is to develop a quarterback for the long haul in the National Football League. And Ron Rivera, Ken Dorsey, Mike Shula, they've done a terrific job with this young man. And we always talk about how coaches design offense, and coaches come in and say, this is my offense. You run my offense. It's been proven. Well, that's not what Carolina did. That's not what Mike Shula did. They built their offense around Cam Newton, his incredible talents. his unique talents, and his ability to run, his mobility. And then all of a sudden you start to see the cerebral part of the game become a major part of his weaponry, the ability to read the defense, to change a play at the line of scrimmage, to understand the strengths and weaknesses of the defense. This has been a maturation process. It doesn't happen overnight. And this is a very unique, talented guy. And quite honestly with me, he's fun to watch. And I've watched Randall Cunningham. Mike, you played with Randall. We've watched Michael Vick. This is a different cat, man. He's 6'5", 250 pounds.
Every bit of 250. I mean, every single bit of 250. So let me ask you this, Jaws. How do you stop him if you're Denver?
Well, it's very difficult to stop him, and I think you have to stop the offense. You almost approach this game and say, Cam is going to get his, but we got to make sure that Funchess, Ginn, Cotchery, Brown, they don't beat us. Olsen is going to get his. He's clearly one of the premier tight ends in the National Football League. He's going to get his. But you don't want to let the other guys get the explosive plays. Denver's going to need to take this game into the fourth quarter, not turn it into a throw ball early. Take it to the fourth quarter with a chance to win it, much like they did last week. Keep that game close right down to the end. You're not going to stop Cam. You're not going to stop the Carolina offense. You just want to hopefully slow them down.
Biggest difference for this Denver defense playing against New England and now playing against Carolina?
Oh, it's a huge difference. It's 180 degrees different. When you watch the Denver defense against Tom Brady in New England, they spread the field out. They put the game in the hands of Tom Brady to get rid of the ball in 2 seconds. And, when Tom's hot and reading the defense quickly, the ball comes out. You don't even need to block anybody up front. Well, that didn't happen. Denver had a really good plan in that game. 14 times against Brady, they only rushed 3, and they really took away those underneath lanes, 5 and sometimes 6 on those short passing lanes. And early in the down, they beat Tom Brady. They beat Tom Brady's receivers. They couldn't get open early, and all of a sudden the rush started getting to Tom. And it was a great game plan, of course, by Wade Phillips. Now it's different when you play against Carolina. They're not a team that's going to spread you out. They play two backs. It's unheard of in today's National Football League 10% of the time. 2 backs on the field. They play 2 tight ends. They want to bludgeon you with the running game. They want to disorient your defense with all the jet sweeps and the zone reads and the whams and the powers and all the running game plays that they have. They really do a great job with that. So last week where the edge players for Denver were important coming off the edge, this week it's going to be a little bit different. They're going to have to take blocks on.
Let me ask you about that. And one of the differences before we even get to an X and O, it's getting off the ball. When you're in Denver and you have the home crowd, and we saw at times, now just in a neutral field, those rushers were better than New England's, tackles. No doubt about that, without question. But the extra advantage, sometimes they would almost be even with the tackles because they were getting off on that silent count that the center, Brian Stork, I don't think changed up enough to change the rhythm, that those guys were almost at the level of the tackles before the tackles got out of their stance. From an offense, leading an offense as a quarterback, how different now is that going to be in a neutral site where noise won't be a factor and the D-line for Denver won't have that silent count to try and figure out and get a jump on?
Mike, you're absolutely right. You play the defensive line, and the cadence is an advantage and a weapon for the offense. They're supposed to have that advantage, understanding when the ball is going to be snapped. When it's neutral, the defense now gains the advantage, and clearly Denver had the advantage getting off the football. Now, I'll take it a step further, and I spent a lot of time this week looking at the coaching tape and looking at the TV tape, which sometimes give you a little more intimate look down at the quarterback's feet, maybe Tom Brady's hands, maybe a Stork at center, maybe an offensive lineman, looking for a hint, an indicator, because it just appeared to me that the Denver defensive line was just getting a tip somewhere. Not necessarily the cadence, not necessarily the ball watching. They were getting a tip. And at times, I thought maybe it was Brady's heels coming off the ground, maybe his hands under center, maybe getting a rhythm to Stork's snap count. But there was something just outside of the normal watch the ball and get off. They were getting some sort of hinted indicator when the ball was coming.
With Mike Golic, I'm Ian Fitzsimmons here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2. Ron Jaworski, ESPN NFL analyst, here with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So, Jaws, staying with that Denver bunch, when you watch Peyton Manning in the last 2 weeks, I mean, the eyeball test, we see that he is much healthier. He is much better. But when you watch him on film, what do you see that stands out to you over the last 2 weeks compared to earlier in the season?
Quite honestly, guys, not a whole lot. There's no doubt that Peyton is willing a lot of these plays. He does not have the extraordinary talent that he once had to throw the football. He is willing success right now. And I think a lot of people are counting Peyton Manning out, have counted Peyton Manning out. And I would just tell people, be very careful of that. This guy's a special dude, and in a one-game opportunity like this, he's going to give you all that he can give you. Now, that may not be enough, but I will say this. He made 2 throws last week, that were beautiful red zone plays, design plays to get Owen Daniels on Collins, and he beat him twice. They were beautifully designed and executed plays by Peyton Manning and, of course, the Denver coaches. They got those 2 plays, and sometimes you get in games like this, it's 2 plays that determine who wins or who loses the game. So, it's not the same Peyton Manning. We all understand that, but this guy, there's something special about him. Don't count him out.
So when we hear Jaws, one of the big reasons Peyton is back in there is the position he can put the offense in just before the play's even called, of that chess match of getting his offense in the best play position against whatever defense is showing. In your mind, between that, pre-snap, what's the biggest chess match out there?
Well, that certainly is a big one. We understand that. Carolina, what I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, Sean McDermott has picked up his blitz tempo. He's now running a bevy of unique designer blitzes, corner cats, safeties coming off the slot, Finnegan coming after the quarterback. They have picked up their tempo. So I think clearly you give Peyton Manning that extra week. He's grinding down in the basement right now. He will know, exactly what you're doing. He'll look at alignment. He'll look at feet. He'll find something that will tip the coverage. So clearly that is going to be important. But then it also turned that over to what the Denver Broncos have to do offense besides Peyton Manning. It's not always about Peyton Manning. It's about that offensive line. And they have struggled at times this year, and that's probably been the biggest issue in both running and throwing the football, the inconsistency of Denver offensive line. So to me, it's one of those games, I call them, that school game, that book game, that classroom game. You better be drilling down on your own responsibility, because right now, when you look at Carolina, they are coming after the quarterback. They are loading the line of scrimmage in their run blitzes as well. So the offensive line better be prepared mentally as well as physically.
And Jaws, on that note, we all know that Thomas Davis is a remarkable story coming off the 3 ACLs. He's one of the captains of the Carolina Panthers. On that note, with that Carolina defense, and those guys are hunting, you're 100% correct. What does it mean for him to be able to go, with that broken arm in the Super Bowl? What does he bring to this defense for the Carolina Panthers?
It is a tremendous emotional lift. Thomas Davis, and not only one of the great athletes playing the position, we've seen his skill set. We see the plays that he makes. He's fought through a number of issues, but he's also an incredibly well-liked guy by the Carolina Panthers. He's one of their team leaders, and when people see this guy break his arm, and he's going to come back and play 2 weeks later. Heck, he's out of the practice field already. That's going to be great motivation for their football team. That's great leadership without saying a word.
Jaws, we always appreciate it. Thank you for your time, as always, my friend.
All right, thanks, Ian. Thanks, Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today and find out if we can save you hundreds on your car insurance. Golic, when was the last time we talked about the National Hockey League on this show?
It's been a while. I know you're a big hockey fan. When I used to live in Arizona before I came here, we had season tickets to the Coyotes. We used to go watch them all the time in the playoffs, the whiteouts and stuff. It was fantastic. As I still said, I think it's the most exciting sport
in-game,
to be at.
Yes.
In-game, to be at. To sit in that arena and watch. It's fantastic.
Look, man, we have some, and the NHL is doing something that is just much bigger than hockey. Trust us on this. We're about to get into it. But look, I became a hockey fan when I went to do a show with Captain Game Day, Kirk Herbstreit, up in Columbus, Ohio. And learned the game swimming through the bars and restaurants of Columbus with one of the hockey legends in Kevin Dineen, now an assistant coach with the Chicago Blackhawks, and became a huge CBJ fan. Now being in Dallas, the Stars are good again. So I do love going to the barn. And as you said, it is one of the best, if not the best, in-person, in-game experience that you can find. Well, they need press. I think we all agree with that. And right now, the National Hockey League is getting some press.
Yeah, they are. I don't know if it's all the press they want, but
how do you suspend a guy who is hurt, and Alex Ovechkin, right, for not playing in the All-Star game? He is going to be suspended a game along with Blackhawks center Jonathan Toews.
So it's their rule. Their rule, if you don't know, in hockey is if you get voted in to play in the All-Star game and you do not play for any reason, that you are suspended for the first game after the All-Star game. Now,
Ovechkin is hurt. Toews is sick. And
Toews is sick. Ovechkin is hurt. I love the injury reports in hockey. You know how in football they have to be so specific? In hockey, it's lower body, upper body.
That's all you get.
That's all you get. And sometimes you're not. If it's a lower body, it may really be a shoulder, for all you know. But so Ovechkin is hurt. Toews, as you mentioned, sick. They're not playing. And they feel it's more important to rest for the next part of the season, to be ready for the playoffs. And I'm excited to watch this All-Star game because of the rule change, 3-on-3, going to be fast hockey. So I am looking forward to it. But these guys can't play. And we're going through what we're going through now with the Pro Bowl in the NFL. It's getting to a joke stage. It's the most replacements we've ever had in the NFL. Now, one of the things that does that is the fact that since the Pro Bowl is before the Super Bowl, you lose the 2 Super Bowl teams right off the bat. And that was 14 Pro Bowlers. So they automatically have to get replaced. And then so many other people dropped out. We're down basically to one of the quarterbacks. I think Jameis Winston is the 14th. He's after the sixth.
Winston is
after the sixth original. After the sixth original, I believe there were 8 more replacements. I mean, but that's the way it works. That's just the way. But that's the rule here. So the fact is, do you not like the rule? Because if you didn't have the rule, would you get more guys just sitting out because they wanted a break?
Maybe. And this isn't the first time it's happened.
No. It is not.
And Lindstrom.
You go back in 2009 with the 2 guys you mentioned right there from Detroit. They both got suspended for the following game. Sidney Crosby last year.
In Columbus.
Last year in Columbus. He didn't play and he got suspended for the first game after. So you know that going in. So it's up to you whether you want to decide to miss it or not. Now it's just the fact you like the rule.
And if a guy is hurt,
I know
there should be an exception to that rule.
But see, so where do you go? You know what hurt is. Hurt is you got a stubbed, pinky toe, but
you guys are all of a sudden have a lower body injury.
What are you doing then? Sending them to an independent doctor to make sure they're hurt? It's just a matter of if you like this rule. Do you like the rule that if you miss it, no matter what, you're suspended for that first game? Me personally, I think it's a bit much. I love the NBA All-Star Weekend and I love the NHL All-Star Weekend because I love the different skill games that they have in both. And I love the fact that the games count for nothing. I think in baseball it's ridiculous that it counts for home field in the World Series. So do I think this might be a little much to say even if you're legitimately injured, you get suspended for the first game after? Yeah, I think that's a bit much. I do.
Now you have that story. Then you also have the latest involving Dennis Weidman and his hit on the official 2 nights ago. The linesman Don Henderson. Now he has been suspended as they go in and begin to investigate.
Right. He's not been suspended. He's not been given a number.
Right.
He's been suspended while they investigate.
I said this yesterday. I want to get your opinion on this. I thought it was malicious. I thought it was cowardly. I thought it was intentional. And when you continue to watch the video, which you can go see it on ESPN.com if you haven't seen it yet, he gets boarded, nothing's called, and then as he gets up, kind of wobbly at first, then he straightens up, going to the bench to skate off the ice, and sees the action coming toward him, sees Don Henderson, speeds up a little bit, and then unloads with both hands and his stick a cross-check into his back, blind side. Never saw it coming. I thought it was intentional. I think he should be hit with as big a base suspension as you can. You should never touch an official, especially when he's got his back to you and you have a weapon. And that was cowardly. Sit him down. Even though everyone says this is completely out of his character, don't care.
Well, that doesn't matter.
He's got to sit.
I mean, yeah, he definitely has to sit. Listen, his excuse if I was keeled over and just saw him at the last second, I mean, the first thing you need to do is get a better excuse. Because you can easily watch the video and see he was standing up well before he got to the official. If I were going to use an excuse, and I'm doing air quotes right now, I would have said, Listen, the action was coming my way, kind of right at me, because if you watch, you see the player with the puck almost go right by there. So he could say, I was trying to get out of the way of that, because if I'm standing in that way trying to get out, that's going to be interference. So I'm trying to get out of the way of that, and the ref happened to be in my way. That's the excuse I would have tried.
That's a heck of a lot better than I was woozy.
That's what I would have gone with, and maybe you had a shot, because you do see the puck coming right up the ice, right where he is, and he skated over. But throwing the stick out the way he did, kind of speeding up right at the end to give a good jolt on him, to me, there was no doubt that was intentional, and that was intentional, and he should be sitting for a while.
You know how Golic feels? You know how I feel? Here's what Barry Melrose has to say about this.
I think there's a scenario who get nothing because it wasn't on purpose. I've been hit, and you're skating, but you don't really know where you're going. You know where your bench is. You're just trying to make it to the bench, and all of a sudden something pops up in front of you, and you collide with it. So I don't think it was on purpose. I think he was he was woozy. He didn't really know where he was. So there might be a game. But again, if you give him a game or two, then you're saying he did it on purpose. So you really can't give him 1 or 2 games. The rule says it's got to be more severe. So. I still think it was exactly how he described it in his comment after the game. It was just a surprise hit, and he wasn't trying to hurt Donnie Henderson whatsoever.
Listen, Barry Melrose, he's our hockey department, and he is certainly entitled to his opinion. He's played the game, way more than we have. He understands the game. I get it, but I disagree.
How can you watch that video and think it wasn't intentional?
The two things that were said that I just don't buy is when the player says, I popped up and he was right in front of me. You could see on the video he didn't pop up. If you want to say he was still woozy, that's one thing. But he said, I just popped up from my hands on my knees. He didn't. And then the other, Barry Melrose, said, when you're skating and all of a sudden the guy pops in front of you. The linesman didn't pop right in front of him. He was there the whole time. So I disagree with Barry. I love Barry. I love him to death. I couldn't disagree more.
Right there with you, man.
I think he absolutely did it on purpose, and I think he should absolutely get hammered for it.
And then one other NHL note, and once again, bigger than the game, fans vote for the participants in the NHL All-Star Game. And they voted in John Scott, who's an enforcer. I mean, he's 6'8", 250, 260 pounds.
You know the deal. He doesn't score goals. He's in the penalty box.
He's protecting your stars.
Yeah.
The guys on his team.
You get the deal. There was a grassroots effort to get him in there, and they got the votes to be captain. That's what happened.
So he writes a story on the Players Tribune that got a call from the NHL. He says that tried to talk him out of participating in the event. According to Scott, someone with the National Hockey League asked him, quote, do you think this is something your kids would be proud of? End quote. My answer to that guy, hell yes.
Yeah. You know what?
I mean, he's not even in the majors. He's in the AHL right now. Yeah. He got sent down. But still, my kids are going to see Dad in the All-Star game. Yes, they're going to be proud.
And when they get older, if they read about it and look more into the story and want to have decide for themselves what they think, the bottom line to me is, hey, and NHL embarrassed themselves on this one with that comment. You have your rules. Look at the rule about you're going to suspend 2 of your stars because they're not playing in the All-Star game, right? That's your rule. You're living by your rule. You know what else is your rule? You've given power to the people of the vote of the All-Star game. Deal with it. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, these are the stars, we're enforcing this injury rule in the All-Star game, they're sitting a game after. Those are our rules. What else is our rules is the All-Star game. You can't say, well, you know what, we want to tweak this one a little bit because we didn't think it went the way it should. Can't do it. And then you compounded it by embarrassing yourself and actually telling this guy, you think your kids will be proud? Are you serious? It's your rules and let the fans vote. And I've thrown my hands up on this a long time ago as far as people who deserve to be there and who the fans want to see there. Was this a little bit out this year in getting him there? I get it. But still, you're letting the fans vote. They voted him in. He plays. Don't embarrass yourself by bringing his kids into it. Are you kidding me? You went there? That's what I would say. I would say, you went there?
Somebody should have queued up the Battle of Him of the Republic on that, man. That was absolutely fantastic, man. And I agree with you 100%. All right, 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Is any pub good pub in this particular instance for the National Hockey League?
I'm not always a believer in any pub is good pub.
I think any pub's good pub.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough. Take the John Scott one aside. The other two, any pub's good pub.
You can't take the John Scott one aside.
If
you said any pub is good pub, then you have to say
there's an exception to every rule.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Turns off the staggered screen and fires a three, and he got it.
While the drama around Blake Griffin and the Clippers continues to grab headlines, the play on the court hasn't suffered.
Chris Paul, step back J. Oh, yeah, for Chris Paul.
Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, and the Clippers look to continue to roll when they face Jimmy Butler, Pau Gasol, and the Chicago Bulls.
Butler down court, throws it down with two hands.
Coverage begins Sunday at 2:30 Eastern on ABC and on ESPN Radio. The best of Mike and Mike.
Now we go forward. Why we bring in our NBA ESPN analyst, Tim Legler. Legs, always good to see you, man. And all-stars are out. There's always people that are going to say, this guy got snubbed, this guy got snubbed. And two guys that aren't on it for the first time since 1997. No Tim Duncan and no Dirk Nowitzki. Are both of those guys actually ecstatic that they're not having to go to Toronto?
At this stage of their career, yeah. If this was Duncan or Dirk, if they had made an announcement that they were done and they maybe want to do this one more time, to say goodbye to the fans, basically, I get that, and that's why I'm perfectly fine with Kobe starting in the game, and I think that's what we need to see for an all-time great player, one more time in that setting. So Dirk, Duncan, as far as we know, haven't made that announcement, haven't made that conclusion, so I think they'd rather have 4 days maybe playing golf or in the Bahamas or doing something to recharge that battery for the home stretch.
Are there any other snubs to you, a Damian Lillard, a Pau Gasol, any others that really kind of stand out? I mean, at this point, again, the starters are chosen by the fans, and then the reserves are chosen by the coaches. A coach who's coaching the game can't vote for his own guy, but these are some of the listed snubs.
Well, the two guys are Lillard and Pau. So look at both of their cases. Lillard, 24 points a game on a team that lost 4 starters around him.
Right.
And he's kept them alive, basically, in the playoff hunt. The problem is if you start adding guys, then you have to be willing to say, like, who's coming off? Chris Paul, James Harden, and Klay Thompson are the 3 guards that you'd have to remove one of those guys, right? So you're not doing that. So although he has an argument on the year he's had, and statistically, truth of the matter is he's not going to crack that. I have a bigger issue with Pau. Like, that's the one guy. He has had one of the best years of his career, not just, good relative to other forwards in the Eastern Conference. He's putting up the kind of numbers on a consistent basis that he put up toward the tail end in Memphis and his early years in L.A. That's how good he has been in his 15th season. And again, with some of the issues they've had, coaching change, they've had issues with Derrick Rose playing well, Jimmy Butler and Derrick Rose kind of having cohesion. Pau's been the constant on that team, and I feel strongly that Pau should be in this game. But again, you say who comes off, you'd probably look at Paul Millsap or Chris Bosh, and I'm not going to denigrate either one of those guys, but Pau's had equally as good a year as either one of them.
Right. I think in the East, guys aren't having career years.
Right.
They're all-stars, and they have been all-stars, so I think they were voted on compared to Pau and the impact that he's making. In the West is just stacked.
Loaded.
It's just loaded, so it's just hard to get in.
100%. And even a guy like Dirk, and I know Mark Cuban was not happy about it. Dirk could care less, I think, really. But, 17 points a game. Who are you going to look at and take off for him? The only guy would be maybe LaMarcus Aldridge. The problem is, with the record that team has and what they have done, you have to have 2 players from the Spurs, right? So Kawhi is voted in as a starter. Parker doesn't really have those kind of numbers. So Aldridge and Dirk have had very similar years, and Dallas is solidly in the playoffs right now, but San Antonio has been so special, and Aldridge has taken major sacrifices to his touches, his opportunities, so his numbers aren't anything like they are typically for his career. So, Dirk has a case, but not a real strong one.
So as we go away from the All-Star game and look at the season so far, everybody was waiting for the big matchup. First with Golden State and Cleveland, and we saw a 6-point game the first time and the blowout the second time in Cleveland. And then they said, okay, let's look for San Antonio and Golden State. No Tim Duncan in that one, another blowout for Golden State. Do you see it like that? Do you see Golden State and then a big drop, or do you still have San Antonio right there? Not that Tim Duncan would have made up the difference in this particular game, but in what we're all looking forward to, a 7-game series of just how close they are.
I'll put San Antonio, looking them in the eye. Golden State's still slightly better. You'd have to favor them. What happened the other night in that game? You don't have Duncan, and the biggest reason that's an issue is because your IQ and your ball movement and your poise, you lost a little bit of that more than anything else because San Antonio was playing at a manic pace offensively in their half court. And they were sloppy with the basketball, and they weren't taking care of it. And Golden State was so amped. And so you can even see Steph Curry, came out in that game with that killer mentality that they wanted to put this thing away early, and they did. They're going to play 3 more times. They're going to end up playing each other in the Western Conference Finals. Go ahead and book it. You can book your travel now for those 2 cities because they're going to play. And I think San Antonio now, Greg Popovich is the best there is. He's going to do what he has to do to look at his team relative to the Warriors and try to close the gap in different areas and adjust lineups. And you're going to see, when they get there, a phenomenal series. They're going to look each other in the eye, but you'd have to favor Golden State just because of how special they've been.
And this may sound really just stupid, what I'm about to say.
No, not from you.
Not from me.
I never heard such things.
I've heard other people also say it, and it would never happen. But could Steph Curry not only be the MVP again, but also the most improved player in the NBA?
You could make a case, but that'll never happen. Like, they're never going to.
No, it won't happen. But when you watch him play, compared to what he did last year, he's even taken his game to another level this year.
I think the way he finished, though, last year, like if you took the last couple of months of last year, you say, okay, he was doing a lot of this stuff last year. Maybe not, what happened this year, he came out of the gate and just hit the league with a November that we've never seen. Even Michael
Kawhi Leonard the other night?
Like
what he did to Kawhi Leonard? That's the defensive player of the year, and he had him on roller skates.
Yeah, his confidence level is so high right now. He really feels like he can do whatever he wants to people on the court. But he actually had a similar stretch a year ago. So I know that people say that. Typically, that's going to go to a guy that went from averaging 10 points to 17. And there are guys around the league you're going to find like that because that's a hard jump to make.
Yeah, I think the most improved is Jimmy Butler. You've been talking about him all year.
I have no issue with that whatsoever.
The number of games that he has gone over 50 compared to what he had coming into the season. I think Steph has improved. He's the best player in basketball. Now, from a historic, you're a great shooter. What are we looking at when we watch Golden State? Because for me, I've been watching basketball a long time. My brother played in the NBA. I've been a basketball fan. I haven't seen the display of shooting that they do with Golden State.
There never has been. Never has been in history league. I mean, you're like me, and I grew up. I started following the NBA around 1980, right about the time I was entering high school. Mm-hmm. So, you're going back 35 plus years. I've never seen anything even remotely like what they do to people, and they actually take all traditional, conventional defensive concepts that you're taught from the time you're in middle school through high school, college, and the pros, and they throw them out the window because you have to do everything completely differently than you've ever been taught against that team. And it really starts with the way you run back in transition defense. You've never been taught to run back and fan out toward the three-point line in transition defense. It's always been to the lane and then funnel out. You cannot do that against this team, and as a result, you're constantly overextended against them. And it's the one team that I've ever seen where you have to do that against. And when you do that, they have guys that can put it down, too. And they've got playmakers. And now they're going to get points in the paint. Because people think they're a finesse team, soft team, a lot of threes. They get as many points in the paint as any team in this league. It's because of how overextended your defense is trying to chase the basketball around that line. And you never seem to catch up to it. So, no, Chris, I've never seen anything like it. This is easily the best shooting duo we've ever had in the history of this league, and that's not living in the moment. I know what I'm watching, and I've never seen anything like it, and I don't know that we ever will again.
So we know the East. I'm with you. Book it, the San Antonio and Golden State conference finals, and then we see who wins. Golden State, you're right, will be favored, and there's going to be a team from the East, and there's probably going to be the Cavaliers. What's the biggest difference this Cavalier team will be from David Blatt coached to Tyronn Lue coach?
I don't know what it will be, but I'm going to tell you what it better be if Tyronn Lue wants to have a chance to do something that David Blatt couldn't do. Because I look at it like this right now. He actually is in a no-win situation from this standpoint. Best case, in my opinion, best case, they get back to the finals. They lose again, but he's got a full complement of players, which David Blatt didn't have. And worst case, maybe they don't make it to the finals if he doesn't correct this, which is what you're asking me. They have to stop relying so much on the dribble to score. When you look at LeBron and Kyrie and J.R. Smith, you're talking about three guys that get a predominance of their points off the bounce. San Antonio, Golden State do not play like that, and it's just not going to work against those teams. You have to make teams move defensively, and I think there are still times when Kyrie relies a little bit too much on his individual greatness. LeBron holds the ball a little bit too long, too many bounces before he ends up shooting the basketball. And it allows teams to lock in a little bit defensively. So Tyronn talks about playing faster. Okay, I get that. But they're going to have to figure out in their half court How do they promote better ball movement? And how do you make sure that Kevin Love is incorporated as a primary option sometimes and not a glorified spot-up role player, because he's better than that, and they need to incorporate him in that way. So those are the things he needs to make happen. Will he? No one knows. We don't know enough about Tyronn Lue as a head coach to know if he can do it, but that's what he has to do to close the gap with Golden State and San Antonio.
All guests here on Mike and Mike appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Tim, hang on a little bit. We want to get your thoughts on this. How much does the basketball actually matter? Hear what Iowa was complaining about after their loss to Maryland at next. We'll touch on Iowa, Maryland, and a little controversy about a basketball coming up in just one moment, as Iowa lost last night to Maryland at Maryland. But you have an interesting theory as to what Coach Lue at Cleveland, who's only coached 3 games, should have done when he was named the head coach of the Eastern Conference All-Star team, and that is?
Well, it's just an idea. And look, it's an honor, and I'm not one to tell anybody, not to do that.
And for those that don't know, it's the top team in each conference, their coaching staff, and the reason it went to Popovich was you can't do it 2 years in a row, correct?
That's exactly right.
So Golden State was there 2 years in a row, so Steve Kerr wouldn't be doing it, falls to Popovich. But Cleveland was not tops in the conference last year at this point. They are now, so Lue is the coach.
And the fact that he's got 3 games under his belt, gets named the coach of the All-Star game, I thought to myself right away, look at maybe the second-place team, Toronto, Dwayne Casey. The game is in Toronto. If you're Tyronn Lue, maybe you defer and say, look, I have only been a head coach 3 games. I'm going to give this to Dwayne Casey. I think the league would allow him to do it. I think Dwayne Casey would appreciate it, having the game there. And more importantly, you just took over a team that had issues in the first half, a little bit of turmoil there. Maybe you could use those 4 days in a better way if you're Tyronn Lue with your staff to try to think about what you're going to change and how you're going to do that. So when you come out of the break, you hit the ground running, because it's not the halfway point. You're well past that at the NBA All-Star game. You got a 35-game sprint to the finish line, and they clearly have a lot of ground to make up again in terms of Golden State and San Antonio. They've already seen that this year. So maybe you could take 4 days with your staff, even go somewhere warm, hit a little white ball if you want to, but that's maybe what your focus should be, more than parties and events and things like that take place All-Star weekend. That's just a suggestion, but again, if he wants the honor of it, then that's up to Toronto.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I just think it's a tough perspective. I think it's a great concept, but I think it's depending on how he was approached. Would the NBA approach him? Did the owner of the Cavs approach him? Because it's also an award for their staff. Now,
true, that is true.
Now we're sitting back looking at it. Yes, man, it would be great to take those few days off, but when you're in that whirlwind, the owner comes to you and says, hey, Blatt's not here. You want to coach the All-Star team? I've been here 3 days. You don't have much time to think. So he's reacting to a lot of different things right now that it's going to be hard to get them all right.
And it's a great point, CC, because for all we know, he could have made the decision to do it because of his staff and wanting to reward them in a way, and also knowing we're all going to be in Toronto together because you guys are going to be coaching me. So we'll have time to do some of the things I'm talking about. But having 3 games in, and now you're coaching the All-Stars.
I love the Dwayne Casey idea. It's in Toronto, second best.
Because it's Dwayne Casey and it's in Toronto, that's what makes it, makes it better. Yeah, I do like that.
All right, now you're a great shooter. Iowa, after the game last night, where they lose to Maryland.
In Maryland.
Maryland uses an Under Armour basketball, being an Under Armour school. There were some of the Hawkeyes, there were some complaints coming out of their locker room that the ball that Maryland uses was too heavy. To me, stop. Come on, man.
Well, here's a shooter right here. Here's one.
How big of a difference does it make?
A couple of things. First, I can speak directly to this exact topic because my AAU program is part of the Under Armour Association, so we use Under Armour basketballs in their events. And if my guys ever complain about a basketball ever, I don't care if it's an Under Armour ball or one of our balls or any other tournament, I always say the same thing. It's round and it bounces. And that rim is the same exact width that it has been since James Naismith climbed that ladder. So I don't want to hear any excuses. Now, I've never, ever heard anybody say the ball's too heavy. I have heard guys complain about the grip, and sometimes that is an adjustment to make. The grip is different on different basketballs, and it sticks your hand a little bit longer sometimes when you shoot it.
Go out early.
There you go. And look, I got a great story exactly related to this as well. 3-point contest, 96, I go in there, and the balls that we're going to shoot with are actually a few of them in the locker room. And we're getting ready to go out there. First of all, I'd never shot with a tricolored ball, which is the money ball. And they give you hard, right out of the box, plastic balls. And I'm like, oh, my God. I went out there for 30 minutes, warmed up, shot around, and I believe I broke a record that night for makes, including 13 of those tricolored balls. So the point is, it's round, it bounces, the rim is the same width. It should go in if you have the muscle memory. So that's what I always tell
So stop complaining.
And I don't ever want to hear anybody talk about Under Armour in a negative way, with their basketballs or anything else.
I watched the game. No, I watched the game.
There you go.
I mean, they need to move their feet at the end. What about when it's getting dunked on? I mean, it was like a 2-possession game.
The ball wasn't heavy when they were dunking on it.
There's nothing. I was watching the game. Nothing looked like the ball was heavy.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Mike's good to see you. Man.
Mike and Mike.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a real behind-the-scenes look at Mike and Mike. We have these reads you hear us do all the time, and I have a sheet of reads I'm given that I just go through and has the time on it and who the sponsor is, and Ian.
Supposedly the exact same sheet.
On the rundown,
supposedly.
at that time, it's supposedly supposed to match up, and it didn't. The rundown said one sponsor, my sheet had another. So that's where that fun ensued. I didn't have the read that we were supposed to read from Ian's rundown. I had to read on my sheet. And Dan Stanzik, is the one that puts this all together, so I had to jump him for that. Sorry.
My apologies.
Yeah, okay. You know what? At least you're wearing the hat. I appreciate that very much. Okay.
Oh, man. We're reminding you that if you want to get in touch with us, tweet us at Mike and Mike through that 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Wow, this Valentine's with 1-800-Flowers, your rose authority. Order now to lock in an incredible deal starting at just $29.99. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. And to that 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, this show is descending into total chaos.
Yes, it is.
That came from Eric.
Oh, it is. It just is.
I've lost contained
what can I say?
days.
You've lost it. I haven't been here in a couple of days.
You came back for this.
I did. I should have stayed home.
And it's painful for those of you listening on ESPN Radio to watch you try and turn and look at people.
I'm trying to stay away from taking my loopy drugs during the show. The way the show's going, I might as well take them. Yeah, I might as well take them.
Go ahead and fire in, Coach. So you also have to get on a plane. Mm-hmm. All right, we can't make this story up. Chiefs tight end, Travis Kelce, who is a heck of a player. Man.
Yes, he is.
Just spent the past 5 months, he's with 52 dudes in a locker room, plus the practice squad, right?
Yep.
Well, now E! Online has come up with a reality dating game called Catching Kelce.
Get it? He's a tight end. He catches a football, and now it's Catching Kelce. Get it? Get it?
He got it.
Yeah.
And Travis, my question is what are you thinking? And if they're paying you a truckload of money, then good for you. Then I know what you're thinking. The search for love will involve 50 women who are going to travel to L.A.
This is one from each state. It's almost like one of these beauty contests, Miss America. One from each state. You got one eligible woman from each state in the U.S. is going to L.A.
It sounds, according to people that have talked to people over at E!, that it's going to be a combination of Survivor and The Bachelor. Kind of merging the two. They'll be in a home. They will be deciding who goes on group dates with Travis Kelce. This is Golic. How'd you meet your lovely bride, Miss Chris, ND Mom?
I met her at school, first day of school.
First day of school?
First day of school, I was walking out of my dorm to the freshman dance, and she was walking to it, and we literally bumped into one another. We were friends for the first 3 years of school and started dating senior year. It was very cool.
That sounds like the normal way of meeting your bride. This one, not so much. What is the reaction in an NFL locker room going to be?
He's going to get destroyed. The fun that goes on in a locker room about this. He's going to be joined by famous friends and family to help him along this journey. But in the series finale, only he can decide who is the right woman for him. The dating series has a twist. While Kelce will be deciding who stays in the house and who is sent home along the way, the women are able to strategically decide who is attending the all-important
group date. Yeah. 50 women.
I have to admit, the other day, my wife turned it on. We don't really watch it, but she turned it on, The Bachelor. And it's unreal how popular. I didn't realize how popular this show is. I mean, amongst everybody out there, the viewing audience, celebrities tweet about it all the time. I felt myself getting dumber watching it, but I wanted to watch it because everybody watched it. So I wanted to see, who Ben was going to pick between their individual dates and their group dates, what kind of a nutcase Olivia is, and is Olivia going to get voted off? I'm like, hell no, she's not going to get voted off. She's the wacky one there. They're going to have her on as long as they possibly can. Now Travis Kelce is in it.
The only time I've ever watched one of these dating shows was the first installment of that one with Bret Michaels, and every time I needed a shower. I mean, I had to go just scrub down with lava.
50 women, one from each state, living in a house trying to date Travis Kelce.
For a month. For a month, Coach. A month. Travis, I hope you're getting some serious coin because your teammates are going to crush you.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike.
The best of Mike and Mike.
On ESPN Radio, Jimmy Butler, Pau Gasol, and the Bulls head to L.A. to face Chris Paul and the Clippers.
Throws it down with 2 hands.
Coverage begins Sunday at 2:30 Eastern on ABC and on ESPN Radio.